Good evening. We are back with our last candidate interview of the election season, Jay Swearingen, running for mayor. Yeah, you're the last one. Thank you, everyone, for tuning back in. I promise, Jay, we will get done in 1 hour. He says it's past his bedtime, so we're
Right.
gonna we're gonna make that happen. Jay Swearingen, running for mayor of North Kansas City in 2021. Election is April 6th. And we had a phone conversation last fall, and you had asked me if I was going to run for mayor. And I said, why would you want to curse me with that? So, my question for you as we lead this off is what made you decide to run for mayor?
Oh, it's just a natural next step for me. I've served this community for a long time. The director of the North Kansas City Business Council for I can't remember, a couple or 3 years, and then served in the Missouri House of Representatives. And so my life is service. I love Kansas City. I mean North Kansas City, and so it was just a natural fit for me to be the mayor. I've got my master's in public administration, which is the degree that you want to have if you want to run a city. And my sort of goal at the time was to be a city manager. And then I got more specialized in economic development and got out of the generalized city management role. And so this is kind of a homecoming for me, get back into what I was trained to do. But, I want to make sure that I know that there's a lot of questions that you have planned, but I've been beat up pretty hard on your page. So why don't we just get into the meat of this and let's start talking about Shoto Pack and dark money and et cetera, et cetera. And let me clear my name amongst all of your the listeners of your page. So why don't we get
Okay.
into that?
So, as I did a little bit of research and did my due diligence as a voter, and I got into Shoto Pack and the members that are contributing to the Shoto Pack or other PACs, how did they get involved in campaigning on your behalf, or do you even know?
I don't know 100%, but I'm 97.6%. So there's not many Republicans that like me. I've made a lot of Republican enemies in my world. But there is a group of Republicans that really, really like me, and that is a group of people that are committed to the success of North Kansas City Hospital. And I did good work for them. I saved the hospital from being sold. And I know right now Dave Wood is typing fake news. It was never going to be sold. But I tell you, Matt Chateau, the city administrator at the time, called me into his office and said, "Hey Jay, I just want you to know, as the state rep in the district, we're about to sell North Kansas City Hospital. I want to give you a heads up that we're going to make that move." At the time, I didn't think too much about it. If the city wants to sell it, if it's their asset, go sell it. I don't care, whatever. Citizens want to do it. The citizens get to do it. Unbeknownst to me, that he was very one-sided. It had nothing to do with the citizens, and it blew up. And so it came to us, and we solved that problem. And we made a great number of Republicans very, very happy with me because we kept, I can't say we kept it from being sold, but now it's very, very difficult to sell North Kansas City Hospital. If the city wants to sell it, the city council has to approve it, the hospital board has to approve it, and the citizens have to approve it. So if HCA Hospital comes and says, "Hey, we want to buy the hospital," it's probably not going to pass. But hey, if the Mayo Clinic Kansas City or something wants to move here and buy North Kansas City Hospital, maybe that's a thing we talk about, and if everybody can agree, we can do it. So we made it very difficult to sell the hospital, and that made a number of people very, very happy with me. And I think now they would very much like to see me be mayor and are supporting my campaign. Let me be clear, because of the confusion on your Facebook page, none of these people have given me any money. They have just done things for me on my behalf in their campaign. I had no idea it was coming. Had I known they were going to send 5 pieces of mail, I wouldn't have sent nearly as many pieces of mail, because I sent out 5 or 6 as well, right? Had I known they were going to do all that, I probably wouldn't have spent as much. So all you people that I'm filling up your mailbox, I apologize. I didn't realize we were going to get so many.
So let me
Um,
let me jump in here real quick.
yep.
I because I did do my due diligence and I did go look at the disclosures, and you do have your printing with Raven Printing that was disclosed, and that's for your flyers that came into the mailboxes.
The
Um,
only the only labor printer in North Kansas City, so I support those.
and so you don't have any contributions. I've looked at the financials that were submitted. um, through, through the ethics commission. And they substantiate what you have just said. And so I want people that are viewing this to know that I have gone and done my due diligence and looked. I've, as much as I also looked at the PAC.
Yeah. So to be clear, you said I haven't taken any contributions. I have indeed taken quite a few contributions.
Not from
just
the
none.
PAC.
Yeah. There were 3 other PACs that I have taken money from. There is the firefighters PAC, and if you think those are a bunch of outsiders, then I guess that's up to you. It is the IBEW, the electrical workers. We have 2 electric companies here in North Kansas City who are union electric companies who support IBEW, and they support me. If you want to call them outsiders, call them outsiders. And the third is the Carpenters Union, and there are plenty of people that live right here in North Kansas City that are members of the Carpenters Union. So none of those are any outside influence.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I specifically was referring to the Shoto PAC. You've not received any money from them or the PACs that are part of the Shoto PAC.
That is correct. Now, yes, that's correct.
So what do you want voters to know about you that hasn't already been put out there by your campaign? Let's take the PAC out of the equation at this point and talk just about your campaign. What do they need to know about you that hasn't already been said?
Well, I've done a smash up job in a campaign, so I hope I've said everything that needs to be said about who I am and what I do and where I came from and how I got here and where my heart is in North Kansas City, and that I'm in this to win this, and I'm in it to do a great job for North Kansas City. I'm not sure I could say anything new that hasn't been done. Otherwise, I haven't run a very good campaign, right? I do want to say this though. Again, reacting to some of the negativism that's on your page, is that I certainly don't know. I don't know everything there is to know about North Kansas City. Absolutely. I've got a lot to learn. I can't wait to learn it. But I do know this. There are no conspiracies here. There isn't a city council person or a mayor that has run to win a seat in North Kansas City in order to make money, probably ever, but certainly in the last 50 years, right? There is nobody I can't wait to get into North Kansas City and start raking in the dough because I'm mayor or city council person. It's just simply not the truth. They say they heard that I'm a real estate agent, and so they jump on that. Oh, he's a real estate agent. He's going to run all the development and take all the money out of the developments of real estate. And it's just conspiracy theories, and it's honestly just silliness. The city council now, the city council in the future is going to be running because they love the city and they want to do something good for the city.
And they're the neighbors that live here. I mean, we're not Kansas City with 500,000 people. We have 4,800 people that live in North Kansas City, and the people that are running for the offices are literally, sometimes it's no one else is going to run if you don't. And that's truly the story that we see year after year in the general municipal election. Is sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get people to run. So people doing it with an agenda would be a stretch.
Yeah, rare to have a mayor's race actually that actually has 2 people in it. It's kind of a rare thing, I think. I don't think there's been a whole lot of contended race there. That's for sure.
So when we look at what we have learned in the last year, we've had the pandemic, we've had the bitter cold snap. What has this last year taught you about leadership and the kind of leadership that we need in North Kansas City? Because so much of what we've done historically has been, it's been our neighbor that runs for mayor, and we just kind of go along, and it's been pretty smooth sailing for the most part in North Kansas City. And the last year has put some challenges in play that we've never would have dreamt that we would have had to address.
Yeah, you're right. So the question is, what has the pandemic taught me about all this business or about my leadership skills? So as you can see behind us, I'm sitting in the American Club Association, the ACA Business Club, Kansas City North. It's up here on Vivian. My wife and I own this business club. This is one of the businesses that we own as entrepreneurs. We opened the club in January, and it's a place to come and meet other business owners and hang out and learn things from them and take classes and do whatever you can do to get to be a better business owner. And so it's a gathering spot. And then in March, we had to shut the whole thing down. Brand new company, just opened, started paying a lease, signed a big old 3-year lease, and now I can't even let anybody in my building. And so one thing that I'm very, very happy that I learned about myself was my ability to pivot quickly and see what I need to do to get us back on track. And so I had a bunch of members that had already joined the club, and now they couldn't be here, which is one of the values of having this club, is actually coming here. And so I was one of the early pioneers that adopted a way of virtually meeting our members, getting them together. I had strategic planning sessions with people from outside to come in and give them classes on how to network in place. Like, what do we do now if we can't leave our house, but yet we still need to continue building the building? So, I mean, building the business. And so my ability to pivot and solve immediate problems based on immediate problems, I was very proud of it. I'm glad of it. I learned that I have that leadership ability. I'm glad I did.
So as we look at the challenges that we faced as a city with the pandemic, certainly we needed to pivot. We needed to be able to navigate like a speedboat and not the cruise ship. And you've already said that that's a skill that you demonstrated with the ACA. Where do we go from here?
There's probably going to be good things that come out of it too. I mean, the pandemic was a horrible thing, and people died, and I completely understand that it was a horrible, horrible thing. But one of the things that we did was we saw that as a city, we can do more to help our retail, to help our businesses, stuff that we weren't doing before, but almost for no reason, right? So now some of the retail places are now out on the streets, out on the sidewalks. We're putting the big orange places out, blocking off places for them to move tables out, allowing the theater to have the theater out in the back, which is fantastic. And I think a lot of those things, hopefully, are going to last past the pandemic, to where now the city can see, hey, listen, there's a lot of things we can do to support our retail. Let it get outside. Let this place be even more walkable than it is.
So you have experience in developing downtown areas that are walkable and so pedestrian and bicycle friendly. That's part of your resume. Do you think North Kansas City is as well branded as our businesses need it to be?
As well branded? No, I don't think so. I think it's getting there for sure, right? And I'm going to give the credit to this renaissance, I think, to the what's it called when you climb the walls? The
Rock climbing.
What is it called? Rock KC, right? Rock KC, I think, was the pioneer in all of this. They were the ones that really broke out and started bringing that new youthful exuberance to the city and having new people come. Then Cinder Block, and then of course when Chicken and Pickle came, it really blew up, right? But I think we're getting there. I think that if I have my way, Swift will be as well known in this city as Waldo or Brookside or Power and Light or anywhere else. I think we are heading towards a great, walkable, meetable, loving place to come here and just have a great time raising a family, watching a movie, going out to eat. It's going to be a great place, and I think it's definitely coming.
So you're seeing more development south, going along Swift, maybe Burlington towards the river, as opposed to east towards 35.
Oh yeah, for sure. Where do you go towards 35? We got all that all that beautiful building stock going all the way down Swift. I think that's where it's probably going to take off, I would think.
So when we think about the 110-ish years of history of North Kansas City and all of that historic downtown, and we've got this new century we've embarked on, what do you want to bring with us from the past 100 years into the next 100 years? And I'm just going to be blunt. How do we preserve the historic nature of downtown?
Well, we're not doing a very good job right now, unfortunately. I do come from a background of downtown inner city economic development, taking the historic fabric and doing historic preservation and retail development and all that all tied together. And walk downtown now, and there was a tree there, and they cut off the tree, and the stump is still sitting there, right there in the middle of the street, right? So there's a lot of things that we can do to help move this forward. Honestly, I've forgotten the question. What was it?
How do we keep the
past 100 years? Right. Okay.
and keep the historic downtown? How do we keep it?
Well, I don't think there's a problem of keeping it. I think we have enough historic fabric there now that there's no reason for us to lose it, right? Unless it burns down, and I understand we've had that a couple of times, but I don't think the economics are here that it's going to be in anybody's best interest to tear down one of our buildings that we have there now and build up something new, right? I don't think we are in peril of losing the historic fabric that's down there.
But we do have an empty lot because of a fire. And if NT Realty sells it off and we don't have processes in place, they could put up a modern building if we don't have our zoning and our ordinances in place to preserve that historic feel of downtown. That takes leadership to keep that from happening. And we already saw that with the high school.
Yeah. I agree that we can't just leave it up to the good graces of human beings to say, no, we'll do the right thing. There definitely needs to be in place some sort of design guidelines. Now, I believe that downtown does have design guidelines. I know that we got CVS to do a second story, even though it wasn't really a second story. We got them to build a facade that looks like it fits downtown when CVS built that building. So I believe we do have some guidelines that I hope would serve us well for that block. I'm going to step out a little bit and say I'm not against. Now listen to the whole sentence, the whole paragraph. Don't jump in at the very first part. I'm not against a new building going on that corner. I'm not against. Obviously, it's going to be a new building, but I'm not against a new looking building going on that, as long as it fits what I call the cadence of the street. Right. The buildings that are there now are built on 25-foot lots. Either it's a 25-foot building or a 12 and a half in some places, 25 or a 50-foot building. And every 25 or 50 feet, there's a door, there's windows on either side, there's a transom window, there's a second story. So even if they build a new building, but they keep that cadence of the street, I think it'll fit in just fine.
Okay. I'm willing to look into that a little bit more.
I'll show you some examples.
Okay.
Of buildings fitting in just beautifully right downtown. And you look at it and you go, that is a modern building, but it fits the whole character and shape and everything, even if it's not brick or whatever. But anyway, that's beside the point. The question was, if something gets built there, we need to make sure that it fits in there. And I hope that we have those guidelines. I feel like we do. Otherwise, I don't think we would have gotten the CVS that we have. But if there's not, I certainly would love to strengthen those guidelines to make sure that we know exactly what's going to go in.
Okay, that's fair enough. So one of the other questions that comes up is we had the 18th and Swift project that has changed how the parking was going to be there, and the 23rd and Swift where there was supposed to be retail initially in the bottom floor of that apartment building going in there, and those projects are changed, and the developers have pivoted and we've gone along with it, but there are some questions from the residents about what are the guarantees that future projects aren't going to be allowed to pivot as well? Because there is some concern about not having the shops at 23rd and Swift and not having the parking as promised at 18th and Swift. So what do we do with that?
Let's see. I disagree a little bit with the premise about 23rd and Swift. That was, for a long time, that was going to be just another section of City View. When the Rainin companies had it, it was going to just be more City View, just more apartments. Rainin gave it up. It took it back to the city, and maybe there was an RFP that went out that said, "Hey, we would like to see some retail," but we never. I don't remember ever saying that it was going to be retail, and then we lost it. I knew
Okay.
in my heart that that was always going to be nothing but apartment buildings. Hey, listen, we learned our lesson in Northgate Village. That empty strip of grass out there on Burlington, where Ruby Tuesdays is, but then everything else is vacant. They had that slated as retail, and they mandated that that has to be retail. They also mandated, by the way, that it couldn't be any retail that was already in Clay County. They had to go find retail from outside Clay County and bring it in. They couldn't cannibalize it from Clay County. And we saw what that did, right? There is no retail there. There was for a second, and now it's gone. You can't mandate retail. The market tells you when retail is coming. Now, that being said, there is places that the market has said retail will work, right? Armour and Swift, that corner. If that corner of Armour and Swift on the first floor isn't retail, we have done a disservice to our community. If we let something get built there and it's another building with office space on the bottom floor, we've done a disservice. So I hope that we can get in there and stop that, because it's clear that that area can be retail and support retail. But just picking a place in Northtown and saying we need retail right there and we're not going to take anything but retail is going to hamstring us, as it did there in Northgate Village.
So how do we keep misinformation about these projects to a minimum?
Well, if you say, do we keep information from the city, misinformation from the city from getting out, that's attainable, right? We can put in guidelines to say, hey, listen, don't be saying all this stuff. We need to get out the information that's accurate and that will be accurate for a long time. How do we keep North Kansas City Neighbors page from getting out bad information? There's just no way to do it. As we've learned, it's just when people get together, they're just going to say whatever they want. And if something sounds good, they'll amplify it. So we're going to have to, if we want something like that, the North Kansas City Neighbors page or something, to only give out good information, I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do.
No, that as any social media site is, it's always subject to what the members do on that site. But
Okay.
sometimes I don't think that, like, I didn't know that that area by Ruby Tuesday was slated to be retail at one time. So there's just information that we don't have. And I think sometimes when we go look at the minutes from the city council meetings and stuff, it's not easily digestible. So how do we convey these things about these projects and kind of distill it down into something that people can really process?
Well, of course, the answer is doing quality, well advertised city meetings of residents to explain what's coming and what's not coming, right? To get their input early. Are we doing a good job at that? Probably not. With Armour Road, we did a lousy job of it, clearly. I think Armour Road can be a huge success, but the way they implemented it, was bad. Hey, we want, hey, do you like bike lanes? We're going to have a meeting about adding bike lanes. Well, yeah, sure, I like bike lanes. We're going to take up two lanes of Armour to do it. Well, wait, you didn't tell me that, right? So we have to make sure that we do everything we can to give everybody all of the information, not just the information that we want the citizens to have. I think that's the big deal.
Because we are not Kansas City with 500,000 people. We have 4,800 people that are going to be vocal if it doesn't work out so well, which is what we found out with 18th Street this past week when they took out the parking spaces right in front of those businesses and didn't tell the businesses, didn't give the businesses a month or more to tell. I mean, certainly we've known this project was going to break ground, and we didn't tell the businesses, hey, tell your customers when they come back, send them an email or 10 saying that this is where we're going to have them park. We didn't do any of that. And we didn't do that with Armour Road either. We didn't say, hey, we're going to break ground and we're going to change Armour Road starting October, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting in front of it seems to make sense. Is there anything else that we can do besides getting in front of it communication wise?
I don't know if there's anything else we can do. I think that is the key, but I think we can do it better. And I think with technology that we have now, I think we should be getting better and better at it, right? Some sort of a maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, a sort of a text system where we can text the citizens that opt in to let them know about meetings that are coming up and things that are happening that the citizens can get involved with. I think we have those abilities now that we didn't have in the past, and so I think communication is the key. Just doing different ways to reach all of the different people to make sure that communication is working, right?
What worked for you in the past in other communities that you've had these types of projects?
Well, unfortunately, those communities were long before um, social media and such, right? And so all of our uh, citizen outreach was all through mail, newsletters, phone calls, that sort of thing, right? So that is very, very difficult. But I think also um, that uh, that's important to do. I'm sorry, I just got a note to remind me to say that I have done this in the past, right? We had when I was when I was in the House of Representatives in Jefferson City. I came back home on Thursday afternoon. Our session ended Thursday morning, and I was generally back here Thursday afternoon. And so early Friday morning, I had J Cafe Friday at one of the restaurants here that is now closed. So maybe I'll do it somewhere else. But that was an opportunity for me to tell the citizens, anybody that was interested, and I had lots of people come to that. I was kind of shocked. But to tell anybody that was interested, hey, come out. I'll tell you all the things that happened in Jefferson City, and you tell me what I need to go back and tell them. So that's another opportunity. But now we have social media and all that, and as long as we're attacking all the different points that people pay attention to, because it's all just a fight for attention, right? So if we put everything on Facebook, well, there's some people that are only on Instagram. So we got to make sure we're over on Instagram. And there's some people that aren't on Facebook and Instagram, but they're watching TikTok all day long, right, Kylie? And they're watching TikTok. And so we need to do something on the TikTok to get all the young folks there. So I think the answer is there. We just need to do a better job at it. Cities. I've worked for a lot of cities, and because we are funded by the public, we have to be very, very careful with how we spend their money. And when we are careful with how we spend their money, that also means we're very slow at how we spend their money because we want to make sure that we're doing everything right. So cities' timetables generally are slower than what the citizens would like their timetables to be, right? Even with when they took away the parking from those businesses right there along 18th, the city admitted their fault. They were like, man, we blew this and we're sorry. This is our fault. Let's see what we can do about it. Thank goodness. I mean, that's very nice to hear that they did that. And they said, but don't worry, we're going to have a meeting on April the 13th or April the 8th or something to get to the bottom of this. And I'm like, wait, that's 2 weeks from now. That's half a month. That's half of a rent that these businesses have to sit around and wait to hear what the solution is going to be. So trying to figure out a way to spend public money quickly and efficiently and without wasting it is a difficult task.
And a thankless job for all of those involved in it, from city staff to the council to the mayor.
Very often, but sometimes, but not always. Sometimes they're very thankful for the things we've done.
So conflict is inherent in almost everything that we do, every job that we have. But certainly we've seen conflict within the campaign this year. We've seen conflict within the community in the past year as we've gone into this election season, even before the election season started. Lots of independent thinkers, which we're grateful for. But we still have this job at the end of the day to have the cooperation and collaboration to get things done. And should you win becoming mayor, how will you be able to work through that conflict to get that cooperation and collaboration when there's been so much conflict within the election itself, and not just in the mayoral race, but in the council race as well?
Right. I've tried my best to make sure there isn't any conflict in this race, and I'll do my best to make sure there isn't any conflict when I'm mayor. There wasn't conflict because I didn't have my supporters, or nor did I respond to any of these negative things that were coming out of North Kansas City neighbors. And so there is always going to be conflict. The solution is to not engage in the negativity, to include everybody, to get everybody to the same table and see if we can talk things out. Evidently there are some of the biking community that for whatever reason just do not like me, as it is clear reading through North Kansas City neighbors. They've never met me, but they don't like me. It seems to me, for example, if the biking community thought, hey, Jay Swearingen might someday be mayor. Maybe I'm not, but maybe I am. Maybe we should go meet with him and tell him, hey, this is what the biking community is interested in. This is what Armour Road means to us. How do you feel about it? This is why it's important, to try to get me on their side rather than just attacking me vehemently over the last couple of weeks on the Facebook page. So I am going to learn from that. And when I am mayor, I am not going to attack them. I'm going to invite the bike and path people to come to my office and say, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's important to you to help move these things forward. And it's the same with two arguing city council people. Hey guys, listen, we're in this together. Let's see if we can figure out what's important to you, and I'll bet we can use this thing called compromise and get something accomplished rather than letting them just be so mean to each other and call each other names and all that. We got to put an end to that.
So it was, let me get my head wrapped around my question. Sorry about that. When we start talking about some of the processes that the city administrator has put into play, and I'm trying to remember the exact quote.
The processes the city administrator has put into play.
Give me a second. This is what happens when I don't take notes and something's triggered.
I got it.
The city staff has done a very good job of vision casting and trying to make sure that we are informed. Not always hitting the mark. We're going to have a change over in the city administrator in this next term, mayoral term. So selecting that next city administrator that's going to be coming in partway through the Armour Road changes, the Burlington corridor changes are getting ready to happen in that project. That selection of that city administrator is kind of a big deal. So how do you influence and make sure that we have the best candidate that can look at things and digest it very, very quickly to get up to speed? Because these things are already moving. These are already moving parts.
Well, to me, that's easy as pie. We put Kim in that role. On day one, I'm going to be lobbying every city council member to not go do some national search, because we know we have got a talented human being who knows what she's doing, who knows the budget, who knows the city, who's been here forever, who wins awards for being a great assistant city manager. And we're going to put her through some interview process, take up a bunch of time, spend about a bunch of money, and we know we're going to hire her anyway. I'm going to lobby them and we don't have to go do a national search. We can just put somebody in there if we want to. I've checked on it. And I'm going to lobby the council to put Kim Nakahodo in that role so that we can get this budget out and start rolling through Armour Road, and then let her go pick some assistant city administrator to help her do that job.
And she does come from Blue Springs, which has 10 times the population that we have and a much larger budget in some ways than we do. The general budget. And that's part of where I was going with Eric Berlin is everything's been aligned for our water and our trash and our city services to come out of our normal funds. And then those capital improvement projects come out of money that we get from the gaming. For the most part, that is something that I think a lot of people in North Kansas City don't understand is, yeah, we get the money from Harrah's and that's how we get some of the cool projects. But really, preserving our industrial area and our business community is what really supports the things that we depend upon, like making sure that the water comes out of our faucet when we turn the knob, making sure that our trash gets picked up. And yes, we want recycling, even though recycling is something that we actually lose money. Every municipality loses money on recycling. We don't make it. It's a losing proposition. So all of those city services that we
It's a losing
expect,
proposition for the city, a winning proposition for the world.
correct. But financially, if we had to choose trash pickup or recycling, we'd have to, and we could only have one. Trash would have to be it. But that
Yeah.
comes from our taxes that we get, our property taxes and our business sales tax. All of that is what supports those needs. The Harrah's money, the casino money, is what supports the other stuff, the projects, the things that we want. For the most part, that's oversimplified, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, maybe not the things we want, but capital improvements are streets and bridges and sewer systems and all that. It's not, it's necessary stuff. That's just the way we set it up, which I think was a brilliant way to do it. But what was the question? I'm sorry.
So as we again look at that city administrator, Kim's got the experience at a larger city as an assistant city administrator. She's done a bang up job for us. So you've said that would be someone that you would endorse for as mayor. How about when it comes to
As city
filling?
administrator,
Yes, no, at you as mayor.
I don't want Kim McBodo to be my mayor.
No,
I want to be mayor.
yes, you want to be mayor. Sorry, I misspoke. But as you look at what people need to be in place to help that new city administrator, your planning commission, the boards and commissions that the mayor is by law allowed to appoint to.
With approval by council.
Correct. Which historically really hasn't been. It's usually been approved. It's very rarely has been there been a dissension on those appointments. How would you go about reviewing the applications and appointing the people to those boards and commissions? I mean, we're only 4,800 people, so how do you get people that are really qualified to be on the planning commission, for example?
Yeah, I agree, and we are such a small community. And this question, and I've heard you ask it before, and I've heard the current city council complaining about how the current mayor does it. But I can guarantee you, the mayor would take any help he could get, right? And I know that I'm going to be able to take any help I can get. It seems to be a very difficult job, not an easy job. It's not like I've got a whole bunch of friends and family that I'm going to appoint to those nice boards and commissions, and I'm just trying to slide it under the council's radar. That's just simply not the case. I'll bet it's a hard job just to find people that are interested to fill these slots. So you said, I think the question was, how do I review the applications? I think I would start before that, right? There are city council liaisons to all of those boards, and they should know when appointments are coming up, when vacancies arise. They should be the first to know. I'm going to be looking to my city council people to supply me with names from their ward of people that are interested in those positions. Get it from them. Now, even all 9 of us working out there, I still think it's going to be difficult to find enough people that want to join in. Part of it, I think, is our fault because, we are largely renters here. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing wrong with having renters. Besides America, most developed countries in the world don't have this big obsession with home ownership. Most people are renters, and they seem to function in their cities just fine. But then here in America, and particularly here in North Kansas City, we victimize these people. We act like they are somehow less than a homeowner. So no wonder they don't want to participate, right? Every time they open up a Facebook page, it's like, we got to get rid of these renters. We need more homeowners, the real people of a city building society. It's just not true. We need to incorporate renters into this whole program and let them know that they are part of this fabric of North Kansas City, and maybe they will then support us by getting on boards and commissions.
That's an interesting that's an interesting perspective because I've
I'm an
been
interesting guy.
well, I've been accused of being all about pro home ownership when actually what I'm about is if we're going to eventually be at 80 to 90% rental percentage in North Kansas City, I just want us to do it to the best of our ability and make sure that we have renters that are living in spaces of dignity, not in places that shouldn't be rented out. So, uh,
Baller.
yes, and we have had some of that, and that you know, even recently in the last 24 hours, people have talked about how, we've now become a little snobby in North Kansas City, and I don't feel that that's the case. I feel like we need to do more if we're going to why not set the bar for how a city does renting at that capacity level? Why not set the bar really high that other cities have to emulate?
I love it. The board of renters. I don't know. Is there such a thing?
I don't know. You can create a board if you're mayor. Um, so when you embark on this job of being mayor, provided the voters voice their agreement with that, what is your biggest responsibility as mayor?
What you hinted at earlier was getting everybody on the same page. Right now, more than ever than I've seen in Northtown, we are fractionalized, right? There are cliques doing this and cliques doing that. There's the residents versus the businesses, and there's the young city council people versus the old city council people, and there's all of this conflict. So I think the number one role that I've got immediately is to start building bridges in between these people and helping them all understand that we're in this together.
Are you willing to answer the tough questions?
Sure, give me one.
Okay. Um, well, some of the perception was that the North Kansas City neighbors page, that there were people that were attacking you when their view was that they just wanted clarification and to understand what this pack was doing. And by you stepping back and not engaging, they had a negative response to that. So the
Yeah,
question is,
excellent question. I think I know the question. I think I can extrapolate from that intro. So my answer is really, right? So if I'm a grown man and I have somebody running for mayor in my city, they are right down the street. I know where they live. I know their cell phone number. I probably know their email address. I know their DM, right? This is not like I'm Joe Biden running for president and I'm inaccessible. I am very accessible. So if I'm a grown man and I have somebody running for mayor and I want an answer from that person, I'm going to call them. I'm going to send them a note. I'm going to send them an email. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I'm an undecided voter. This is something that's bothering me. Can you help me understand? I'm not going to go to a Facebook page in front of everybody and say, I want to know why that Jay Swearingen takes dark money, right? That proves to me that they were not interested in my side of things. They were decided voters that are just trying to figure out a way to beat me up. And by the way, that's completely fine. That's what politics is. They're doing a good job. They support Bryant. They want to make sure that other people support Bryant. And a good way of doing that is getting on Facebook pages and beating up the other guy. That's the way they have been trained to do politics for the last 30 years, right? It doesn't hurt my feelings about it. That's just the way that they chose to do it. But I know, I can tell, I can just see that that is politics. That is not someone interested in my opinion. I have had lots of people send me a DM. I've had lots of people on my walk piece. I had chat.jayswearingen.com, and you can go in and register for me to call you on the cell phone. I had dozens of people do that. So I've had conversations with a lot of people who truly had a question about what was happening in my life in the campaign or whatever, and I answered those questions. Somebody that posts on a Facebook page that is clearly set up to support my opponent. I mean, the founder of the page has my opponent's sign in his front yard, right? The one of the admins of the page is NKC Now, which was created by somebody who has my opponent's sign in the front yard. So this isn't some sort of a place to come for true political discourse. This is a place to come to beat people up.
So I want to step back because a couple of times at the beginning you said you referred to your page. And I want to clarify, North Kansas City Neighbors page is not my page, me personally. So if that was directed towards me, I only ended up as an admin because to do the candidate interviews last election season, to be able to broadcast on the page, I had to become an admin in order to do it. And I reluctantly continued in that capacity when everybody else started their exodus from being an admin. So my hope is as soon as the election is over, somebody else gets to take on that role. I am one of two, but it is not my page. I will accept accountability for nkcgo.com, which I put up with the help of Joe Gower, only for the benefit of our restaurants and our entertainment businesses during the pandemic, so that we had one-stop shopping where people could know where to go to find out what they were doing curbside. So I will accept responsibility for nkcgo.com, not NKC Now and not the North Kansas City Neighbors page. Fair, if that's fair enough.
You are 100% right. And in fact, I've been an admin on this page until this election. And so you're right. If I said your page, your was more your in general of people, and I apologize.
I just want to make sure because, it being one of two admins, I can see where it can appear that way sometimes, but I will be more than glad for other admins to return. And we did. I had the same conversation with you, Jay. I had the same conversation with you as I did with Joe about the appearance of impropriety with both of you being admins on the page going into the election season, given your political affiliations. And both of you graciously said, yeah, we're not going to be on the page. So thank you for that and that integrity that it takes to do that, because you could have remained, and that does take away the appearance of impropriety. So, and I don't know if it was your mailer or if it was one of the PAX mailers, and because I don't have it in front of me, obviously, but on one of the mailers that went out on your behalf, it said that you would like to straighten out Armour Road. Was that from you or was that from the PAC? And if it was from you, what did that mean?
That was for me. Straighten out Armour Road. I think it's time that we get rid of the delineators, right? It still looks like a battle zone. It still looks like it's a work in progress. Even the fact that we continue to talk about it makes it feel like it could someday be taken away. The more we talk about, should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? How did it work? Why didn't we do it this way? Why didn't we do it that way? The more we have these conversations, I think it puts in our citizens' minds that it could go away. And I don't want it to go away. I want it to get set. I think it can be beautiful. I think it's going to be a crown jewel in our city's, whatever that metaphor is. I want it to be finished. So I want to get, if those delineators need to move and put concrete there, then let's do that. Let's get this thing done so that we can see what it looks like. That's what I mean by straighten it out. Let's finish the job as quickly as we can so people can see the real value of what we're doing there. Now, I heard you talk to Bryant earlier, and you're not in love with how it all is playing out. And maybe definitely there's room for improvement, and maybe we need to make some improvements. But it's there, and we need to get it finished.
So the beautification of Armour Road, I agree with you. We need to finish it. We need to get it going. And also I'll pose the question to you. We know that we are having pothole issues because the surface was not prepared for the traffic to be moved to one lane from 3 lanes. How do we make sure before we go into finishing it and putting more concrete down, when the surface wasn't prepared and wasn't what we needed for that type of traffic flow on Armour, do we have I don't even know, and you may not know, do we have the money to resurface Armour so that it's at the appropriate thickness and all of those things that I don't know? I just know that we it
Yeah.
we've got problems, and if we put concrete on top of it, then we're just compounding a problem. And so maybe that needs to be addressed.
It's possible. I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true? I know that we have taken Armour down to one lane, but it was already down to one lane from Fayette on. We were already at one lane. So was that section poured more solidly than the rest of Armour Road? Maybe it was. Maybe it was. I don't know.
Well,
Or maybe potholes just came because we've had some lousy, lousy weather.
but we also have semi trucks that don't come down all the way to Fayette, typically.
Good point. They turn on Howell or
And where the
Iron.
potholes are there in front of the post office is where people tend to slam on the brakes when people are trying to back out of the diagonal parking. So I'm just asking the questions because the unintended consequences of not asking these questions at the front end, as you talked about earlier, is that we now have to ask them and answer them on the back end. And so before we go into laying more concrete to finish the beautification process, is that something that we need to address?
Well, it's certainly a good question. If that's the problem, then we certainly need to address it. We had big semis there before, and I know now they're all down to one lane, but I'll bet they were pretty much on that center lane anyway. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. I really don't know. Maybe it is. But if it is, you're sure right. We need to address it.
Okay. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions that I have missed on the page that need to be asked. So what if you're mayor and we have this North Kansas City neighbors page, we have a residents of North Kansas City page now. How can you use those pages effectively to better communicate with our residents? Because we kind of use Facebook, let's face it, as some of our news sources. You talked a little bit about having a journalist. We don't have a journalist, but we do have the Facebook page that can be utilized to disseminate information. Is that something that you feel would be beneficial to utilize those pages better from city staff and from the council and from the mayor?
Well, I guess the question is whose responsibility is it? So the city has its own Facebook page, and if they're going to disseminate information, then they're going to put it on that Facebook page. And if you guys have a Facebook page of residents, then it's the admin's responsibility to grab that and put it on the page to some degree. On the other hand, you guys have like what 2,000 something members on the page. That's a big enough deal that the city should consistently pay attention to that. And that seems to be that would be one of the places that the city would just post to themselves. But as other ones spring up, what is the other? What's Wes's called? Residents of. If that grows to 2,000, then I think they should do it there as well. If it stays in its infancy, then maybe not. So it seems like from my take, I would reach out to see which of these pages actually have a lot of followers, and I would think it's completely reasonable for the city to post on those pages, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, or think of some creative way to do a TikTok.
So for the residents that are not engaged on Facebook, and certainly at times the city has sent out letters and mailers, and sometimes those are effective. In fact, as the hubbub started with the PAC sending out stuff, I literally got flyers in the mail from several candidates, from school board to North Kansas City candidates, and I honestly just threw them straight in the trash. I didn't even look at them. So how do we communicate with those residents that aren't on social media, don't do the text casting, and don't watch the online broadcast of the city council meetings? How do we make sure that they are informed and have a voice? We talked about the equity and inclusion committee a lot, but part of that isn't. I mean, we're still a diverse community. We've got millennials all the way through, people approaching, in their 90s living in our community, and they all communicate differently.
But you have to agree that some of the responsibility falls on them. We can only do so much. We're gonna mail it to your inbox. If you choose not to read it, then we've done everything we can. If we're gonna do Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and put something in your mailbox and put it in the newsletter and do a weekly video on how it all, and you still don't know that it's happening, some of the responsibility is the citizens.
So I'll give you an example. We had the city council meeting that lasted a zillion hours, and 50 people from the bicycle community came to that city council meeting. And very few of them live in North Kansas City. And I agree that the bicycle community deserved to be heard. But there were two older women that came to that city council meeting and got up partway through, probably, and I say partway, an hour and a half through. And I happened to be standing at the back, and I heard them say to each other, "No one's going to listen to us. The only people that are being heard is the bicyclists." How do we make it so that our residents coming, because we still need to hear the bicycle community, but how do we make sure that our residents, whether they're homeowners or renters, that's not even the issue, at least get to be heard in a situation like that?
I don't see how that's difficult, right? We had, when we were going through the hospital thing, we had Ryan Sylvia and I, the senator at the time, had a town hall meeting in the field house at the high school, and hundreds of people came, and we had that same fear, right? That the hospital just packed it full of a bunch of doctors or whatever that were just going to be there to just tell their side of the story. And so, we've done enough town hall meetings, we've done enough city council meetings. This isn't, rocket science. That you just make sure that when you sign up whether you're a resident or a non-resident, and you hear the residents first. They're the most important. Not difficult to do. You just got to make sure that you do it, and that the people sitting on the dais are as interested in hearing from their residents as they are from hearing from the special interest that they invited to come to the meeting.
So as we embark on this communication strategy of making sure that people are as informed as they want to be and giving them the opportunity to engage, understanding there's an onus on the resident and the business owners to take on some of that responsibility themselves. Besides mailers, besides literally knocking on doors, besides social media, is there anything else that we can do for those not online? Thinking of, I just keep coming back to, and one of our residents has asked the same question in a different way. There's just some that are not tech savvy and not online, and so they don't necessarily get heard. We've got shut-ins that are living in the house that they've lived in for 50 years. Um, is there anything else that we can do? Or is that a city council person's responsibility in their ward?
Seems like you've got an idea that you want to share.
I don't. I would love to have the answers, but I don't.
Yeah. So, like I said, there are a dozen things that we can do, and I think we should do all of them that have an impact. But at some point, it's the residents' responsibility. I can get the information to every resident. You say they're shut-ins, they still get mail, they still get family visiting, they still participate in society in one way because they get out and they do their things in some way. So we can get the information to them. They've just got to read it.
Okay. So,
you disagree. And let's talk about this, because I wonder where you're going with this.
well,
you've asked that question three
well,
different ways now.
because it was asked on the Facebook page in two different ways, and I wanted to make sure that their question was answered to the best of our ability. There was a person that said that people came from North Kansas City and were not cyclists. I understand that there was a lot of people from North Kansas City residents at that city hall meeting, Jenny. I'm just specifically talking about these two older women that felt the pressure of all of the people in that room that they were going to be, it was going to be another 30 to 45 minutes after waiting an hour and a half for them to get up to be able to, and they just felt deflated, like they weren't going to be heard. So, maybe a meeting on a topic that big that's just for people who live here. Maybe it's
No,
just for businesses. I don't know. I'm just saying everybody
no,
should be able to
I'm
be
starting
heard.
to I'm starting to worry about democracy at that point. Everybody needs to be, if they feel like any government is doing something that's against them or for them, I think they should have the right to be there, just like anybody else. I would get scared if someone recommended, sorry, this is for residents only, nobody else can get in. That starts to eat at my craw.
So your solution then is that residents get to have the opportunity to speak first. That's what I heard you say a minute ago.
I would say first and more often.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. As long as if there's people in the room, they're getting their voice across. But we got to make sure that our residents are up at the dais first and most often, because there's the ones that we're really making the decisions for.
Okay. That, so
We were at that, right? Valerie and I were there at that meeting, and I totally get what you talked about. Valerie did stand up and speak at that meeting, so she was a resident and she got to speak, but it wasn't easy. We had to get in line and listen to person after person after person before we got to do our speech, and before she got to, and they weren't all residents, that's for sure.
So it is 9:31, and I promised we would keep it to an hour. So I have one last question for real. What are your three favorite things about North Kansas City?
Three favorite things. It's got to be its walkability. I love that you can just walk anywhere around here. I love that its proximity to just about anything in the metro area. We are just a stone's throw from downtown, and so on the wagon wheel, we can get to just about anywhere really, really quickly. And Valerie's chili, because it's made here in Northtown.
That's cheating. The rest of us haven't. We haven't had it, but you could enter into the chili cook-off that we will be having at Snake Saturday's spooky
I don't think
parade.
she can. I think that would jeopardize her professional status.
Oh man. So, on that note, because I know you said you love Snake
Wait,
Saturday. Go ahead.
I want to jump in because you never really got to the question. We were around it about what I want to preserve into the future,
Okay.
and I want to ask the name Mickey Finn. I hope that you do. Say that you do, even if you don't. Mickey
Mickey
Finn.
Mickey Finn put me through the ringer, 3 interviews for my job as publicist, and the one thing he tasked me with was he wanted to be on TV. He wanted the parade televised, and we got close. We're live streaming it.
So he and Bill Grigsby and who else? One other third person started Snake Saturday back in the day. I don't remember who it was.
It was the two of
By
them.
It was just the two of them. I thought there was three riding lawnmowers around the parking lot of what was the American Inn.
Mm-hmm.
Started Snake Saturday, and so I want to bring Mickey Finn into the future. I'm never going to do this. I'll bet I couldn't get this done. Maybe I could rename 18th Street Mickey Finn Boulevard. That would make me very happy. That was a great, great man. He was as committed to North Kansas City as anybody ever was. I'm not even sure he was a resident. He sold toys right there at Swift and Armour when he was 15 and never left. It was business council director and all this kind of good stuff. And by the way, he's got a great name, Mickey Finn. What is that?
So
Mickey Finn Boulevard.
the hotel was called the Roadway Inn at that point, and the little parade around
Same place.
Huh?
Same place where the
Same
American
place.
is.
Mm-hmm. And the winner of Best of Parade that year was a lady on a Harley Davidson in a green bikini.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
So yes,
I the stories that he could tell. Those two guys, what a crazy life they've had.
it and we Mickey Finn set the bar for how we do things at Snake Saturday, and We are grateful for North Kansas City supporting Snake Saturday and canceling the parade last year and postponing it this year. When you hear the announcements of what we're going to do on October 23rd for Snake Saturday, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. So one piece of trivia question for you. How was North Kansas City Hospital founded? How did they fund that first fundraiser for North Kansas City Hospital?
A bake sale.
Man, Valerie should be really upset with you because it was a chili fundraiser.
Oh, it's chili. Oh, I knew it was food. Knew it
Yes.
was food.
So with that, I will say, please vote on April 6th. We understand that everybody in town has candidates that they know better than others, and some that they agree with and some that they don't. But what we want you to do, all of us, everyone, we want you to go out and vote on April 6th. We would love to see the highest voter turnout rate that North Kansas City has ever seen on April 6th. General municipal elections, as I've said before, are the least attended. And as we've learned this last year with the pandemic, that our local leadership really has a huge impact on our day-to-day lives when a crisis like this comes up. We're not through the pandemic. We still have a lot more to learn. We still have a lot more to navigate. And your vote does matter. Votes in the municipal election in North Kansas City, some of them have been as close as 2 or 3 votes deciding the winner. So please come out and vote on April 6th. If you have questions for any of our candidates, please reach out to them directly. Please understand that we have just a few days, but when the election is over, we are still friends, we are still neighbors, and we still all love North Kansas City, and that's why we live here. And
Mindy, thank you very much for doing this. I know it's a long slog for you to make it all the way through this season, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks for agreeing to do this. It is hard to be put in the hot seat, and I know you've done it more than some of the people that live in town that are running, because you've done some political roles in the past, but it's still uncomfortable sometimes being in the hot seat and having to ask the tough questions. But I do appreciate that you jumped right in at the beginning of our interview and addressed the elephant in the room, and that was much appreciated on my, because then I have to figure out how I'm going to ask those questions. So I appreciate you didn't make me do that.
You can't govern if you don't win.
Ooh, there you
So
go.
right now, I'm in campaign mode. My job is to win this election, and then I can turn into mayor mode and bring everybody together.
Okay. Thank you very much. Jay Swearingen, running for mayor 2021 in North Kansas City. I will have all the videos up sometime tomorrow for people to watch on replay. Good night, everyone. I hope your questions were answered, and if not, reach out to your candidate.
Many thanks.